And while some senators see Snowden as a dangerous threat, others see him as a fighter for peace. The former NSA contractor was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize today. His name was added by two Norwegian politicians that say he made the world a safer place.
What makes me really angry about what's going on is how people don't take it upon themselves to challenge all of the bogus laws that have been passed.
In order to take documents that proved that what he was saying was true, he had to take ones that included very sensitive, detailed blueprints of how the NSA does what they do. And so he's in possession of literally thousands of documents that contain very specific blueprints that would allow somebody who read them to know exactly how the NSA does what it does, which would in turn allow them either to evade that surveillance or to replicate it. And that's what I was talking about, that he has basically the instruction manual for how the NSA is built.
Okay, so...
¿Quiere mi nombre y todo? Mi nombre is Hague.
Issues and how they relate to democracy and dissent, or, for that matter, on the inverse, the way that executive secrecy supports and facilitates authoritarianism. Any American, whether on the left or the right, and watched civilization and the history of humankind with the single possible exception of contemporary China. And to put that in one more term, we won the Cold War 20 years ago. We have lost it to ourselves since. And the NSA... The bureaucrats, they're revenge. Admiral William Hague, the father of the nuclear navy, had a saying. He said, if you must sin against God, not against the bureaucracy, because God will forgive you. The bureaucracy never will. Girlfriend, what do you think of George Zimmerman? Those aren't the issues, right? So keep in mind that this is about the future of the Republic as we know it, and it's about the Fourth Amendment. So thank you very much.
Thank you, yeah!
Edward Snowden is, it seems like, both him and Bradley Manning, it seems that in both cases there's been a degree of self-sacrifice in both of their actions, which at least from a structural perspective, if making a screenplay, is one of the...
Are they heroes?
That's the definition of hero, is sacrificing yourself for others. Edward Snowden and Bradley Manning did approach superiors within the organisations within which they worked before making those leaks public. So it seems that in both cases they sought to do it through the proper channels out of a legitimate concern for the way the organisations were behaving. Now, anything that exposes American troops to danger, or anyone to danger really, is obviously negative. But I think that perhaps under the masquerade of security, many injustices can be done.
Look at our emails! Hands off Snowden! Don't look at our phone messages! Hands off Snowden! Hands off my text messages! Hands off Snowden! Hands off us! Hands off Snowden! Protect our rights! Hands off Snowden!
Mr. Snowden has indeed arrived in Moscow. It was completely unexpected. He arrived as a transit passenger and as such needed no visa or any other documents. He has a full right to transit. In this way he is free to purchase a ticket and fly to any destination he wishes.
Он не пересекает государственные границы, поэтому ему виза не нужна.
In doing so he does not cross our state border and therefore needs no visa. Therefore, any accusations aimed at Russia are nothing more than utter nonsense. He is a transit passenger and as such is located in the transit area. Our special services have never interacted with Mr. Snowden before and they do not do it today.
Что касается возможной выдачи,
as for the possibility of extradition, we can only hand over foreign state nationals to those states that we have a relevant, valid international agreement on the extradition of criminals. We do not have any such treaties signed with the United States. And thank God, Snowden has not committed any crimes on the territory of the Russian Federation.
Есть и другой фигурант подобный.
There is another person in a similar situation, that's Mr. Assange, who is demanded for extradition and called a criminal, just like Mr. Snowden. He considers himself a human rights activist and fights for the freedom of information. Ask yourself a question, whether anyone has to extradite such people so they are thrown into a jail.
On the birthday of America's independence, hundreds are taking to the streets in New York City and throughout the country to take part in the Restore the Fourth rally. This is a campaign that launched last month in the aftermath of Edward Snowden's revelations about America's covert spying program, a program that has shocked those living in the United States and those living around the world. Now, the Restore the Fourth aims to restore the Fourth Bill of Rights, which protects U.S. citizens from unlawful search and seizures. The purpose of this rally, organizers say, is to spread awareness and spur political action against unconstitutional spying by the U.S. government. Press freedom advocates that we spoke with say that these protests are crucial because mainstream media is not adequately covering the NSA leaks and their importance to everyday citizens.
I believe that the Fourth Amendment is being breached by not only the government, but by the police with search and seizure, with the NSA leaks and everything that's been coming out. And I feel lied to. I feel, betrayed by a government that's supposed to uphold the Constitution.
Even though they say that there's laws that make everything they do legal, it seems like legal gymnastics to me. I voted for Obama twice, I donated twice, but I'm tired of the expansion of these programs that seem to violate our rights and focus more on keeping us safe in the name of fear.
It really frightened me that the Director of National Intelligence lied to Congress and there haven't really been any repercussions. He issued a written apology, but people have lost their jobs over less, and it seems like he really needs to resign.
We are living in the midst of the largest, unreasonable search and seizure system we've ever seen in the history of mankind. It's completely suspicionless search and seizure of our information, and that people should be infuriated.
Now, this crowd has marched more than 3 kilometers down Manhattan, ending here at Federal Hall, where the first Congress passed the Bill of Rights. In addition to this event, more than 500,000 people have signed an online petition at stopwatching.us demanding full disclosure of all NSA programs. Now, although this rally may be over, those participating in it say that their campaign is just beginning. Reporting from New York, Marina Portnaya, RT.
So I'd just like to go back 1 second to what happened 6 days before we saw Snowden. What happened was General Hayden, former General Hayden, the head of this CIA and NSA at one time, he said, I understand that Ed Snowden has been nominated for the Sakharov Prize, a European list. He's on the list for that prize, on the short list. Well, I know what kind of list he should be on. I know what I'd like to see him, what list, And everybody there goes, oh, big joke, okay?
Well, we know that they have initiated drone strikes on American citizens overseas. What's to say that they wouldn't initiate something like this against Edward Snowden?
Well, that's the irony here. I forget if I've already said this, but the supreme irony is that Edward Snowden had no idea that he would end up in Russia. It was the withdrawal of his passport that necessitated that.
The United States, for all our warts, is a country that abides by rule of law, that cares deeply about privacy, that cares about civil liberties, that cares about our Constitution. And as a consequence of these disclosures, we've got countries who actually do the things that Mr. Snowden says he's worried about very explicitly, engaging in surveillance of their own citizens, targeting political dissidents, targeting and suppressing the press, who somehow are able to sit on the sidelines and act as if it's the United States that has problems when it comes to surveillance and intelligence operations. And that's a pretty distorted view of what's going on out there. So I think that as important and as necessary as this debate has been, it is also important to keep in mind that this has done unnecessary damage to U.S. intelligence capabilities and U.S. diplomacy.
media were telling us there's really nothing to see here. CBS Evening News had their network security analyst come on to explain that the intelligence programs at issue are legal and effective. They just didn't tell viewers he was a former counterterrorism official from the George W. Bush administration, and the programs he was defending were ones that he supervised.
The NSA whistleblower's identity has not only been out for just a little over a day, and already Edward Snowden has become a household name. The contractor has earned a large showing of support from former whistleblowers as well as transparency advocates. Some protesters gathered in New York City today to show solidarity with the man they believe to be hiding in Hong Kong. For more from New York, the resident's Lori Harfiness joins me now. Hi there, Lori. So what happened today in New York?
Well, that's just it. People gathered in protest in Union Square to stand in solidarity with Snowden, to kind of preemptively beat the other media to the punch about all the dirt and the bad stories that are going to come out about him, or any kind of smear tactics that happen. People want to show that they're with him and support him now.
And what was their main message?
Well, that's just it. Solidarity. You know, they all feel very strongly enough to get out there in the rain. And well, you can hear what they said. This is what they had to say.
I think that Edward Snowden started a conversation regarding privacy in the age of new media, and that these problems are architectural problems. There's structural problems in our government right now.
This is probably the biggest national security leak in U.S. history, where we're finding out that the U.S. has literally vacuumed up every moment billions of bits of data.
As an American citizen, I understand it's a difficult choice between security and privacy. However, I think the American people should be aware of what is going on and should be allowed to have a voice in that choice.
So obviously, Lori, these people are very supportive of Edward Snowden and they're touting transparency. Do you expect there to be more rallies like this in the days ahead?
I hope so. There should be a lot of angry people. This should be our big moment to stand up and say we're sick of this and we want our privacy valued as much as we value it. So I think that people have started organizing, and we can only hope to see the outrage that this story deserves.
And Lori, can you talk a little bit about some of the social media aspects of this story? I know that there was a couple of hashtags saying, I support Edward Snowden. Can you talk about some of the social media response to this?
I think it's indicative that people are indeed aware that this is a big infringement on their privacy, and they are willing to take it into their own hands. That's the beauty of social media. It gives it into your hands, and you have the ability to make the effect that you want. So we don't have to wait for the mainstream media to do it for us.
The resident's Lori Harfiness from our New York studio. Thank you. Well, today, civil liberties advocates came together at the National Press Club to call for a change in the U.S. government's stance towards former NSA government contractor Edward Snowden.
If you see something, say something. Edward Snowden saw something, and he said something.
In June of last year, the U.S. Justice Department charged Snowden under the Espionage Act for leaking scores of national security documents. But Colleen Rowley, a former FBI agent and whistleblower, called that piece of legislation unconstitutional.
The last two sections of this 1917 Espionage Act were never, ever enforced because it's pretty well known that they're unconstitutional. They were never enforced after Ellsberg. Very rarely were they ever even attempted to be used, even in true leak cases. Now they're using it to keep the truth from coming out.
Just one day after being charged with espionage, Snowden's passport was revoked by the State Department. Shortly thereafter, Snowden flew from Hong Kong to Moscow, where he was ultimately granted a temporary one-year asylum. It's now been 9 months since his passport was revoked, and civil liberties advocates have said it has left him with very few options.
The U.S. government was directly complicit and responsible by confiscating and revoking Edward Snowden's passport for having him be stuck in the airport in Moscow and be left with no other option. Now, it is true, to be fair, that Snowden did have another option. he could have come back to the United States and gotten the kind of treatment that Private Manning got, which was, according to one UN report, borderline, if not over the border of torture.
The news conference today was sponsored in part by Roots Action, an organization that's already put forward 2 different petitions related to the issue. One petition, which now has over 64,000 signatures, calls on Secretary John Kerry to reinstate Snowden's passport. And the other petition calls on the government to fully respect his legal right to seek political asylum. Roots Action says it plans to present these 2 petitions, which have a combined total of 100,000 signatures, to the Justice Department and the State Department tomorrow morning. But whether the Obama administration is receptive to those petitions and the message of today's news conference remains to be seen. In Washington, Amira David, RT.
For the invitation to speak here today. When injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty. In the age of permanent war, global economic meltdown, climate change, and attacks on civil liberties, every freedom fighter for truth and justice is very welcome and desperately needed. So I want to thank Snowden, Manning, and Assange for exposing what has been happening that's been kept secret from us, from exposing some of the critical truths that we need so desperately to show up the fake democracy that we've got, and so we can start building an alternative to this very corrupt and morally absolutely despicable system that we've got today. So thank you. Now, Snowden, Assange and Manning, together with other whistleblowers, have actually done something very, very important, and that's why they're so ferociously hunted down. They have not just exposed war crimes and the spying, but what they've actually exposed is that our real enemies are not in Iraq or in Afghanistan or Iran, but they are right here in the middle of Australia and in the middle of the US. That's what they have exposed, and that's why they are hunted down. And together with these incredibly brave individuals, any brave government is also hunted down. And we've seen that with the absolute despicable act of air piracy against the Bolivian president, Evo Morales. That was one of the most disgusting, shameful acts we've seen in a long time. But I also want us today here to salute the incredible, courageous people of Venezuela that have taken a stand against the bullying of US imperialism and have said, no, we will not let you attack our country, our rights, and we will grant asylum to Snowden. Thank you, they deserve a very, very big applause.
Verbestehen of Freiheit und Privatsphäre. And we insist on freedom and privacy. In solidarity with our friends in France, we say, nous insistons sur la liberté et la vie privée. We insist on freedom and privacy. In solidarity with our friends in Mexico and throughout the Spanish-speaking world, we say, insistimos en que la libertad y la privacidad. In solidarity with our friends in Brazil, we say, insistimos en liberdade e privacidade. We insist on freedom and privacy. The state has made this equation. Security or liberty, take your pick. Liberty! Listen to Benjamin Franklin's well-known admonition. In 1755, he said, those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. Today, in 2013, faced with a choice from a government which moves without morality, without respect for liberty or law, here or abroad, without adherence to the Constitution. Let us declare that we have made the choice and we choose liberty. We choose liberty over a national security state. We choose liberty over threat. We choose liberty over fear. We choose liberty over suspicion. We choose liberty. We demand the protection of our First Amendment rights. We demand freedom of association. We demand freedom of speech. We demand freedom of press. We demand the protection of our Fourth Amendment rights. We demand the right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure. We assert, and we demand a right to privacy. We want the government out of our bedrooms, off of our phones, out of our email, out of our contacts. We want the government out of our reading list, our personal finances, out of our education records. We want the government to stop wasting our money trying to prove that they are protecting us. In 1775, Patrick Henry said, "Give me liberty or give me death." In 2013, we demand life and liberty. We claim life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness as our rightful inheritance as Americans. This was the promise of the Declaration of Independence written by Thomas Jefferson. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men and women, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of people to alter it, or to abolish it, and to institute new government. If these words, written by Thomas Jefferson, sound radical today, it is because the U.S. government has journeyed far from the spirit of July the 4th, 1776, which was a spirit not just of revolution, but an evolution of an awareness that the very legitimacy of the state depended upon the support of the natural rights of its citizens.
I want to start out by asking everybody, what makes us all American? I remember pondering that question at Brooklyn College when I was taking political science, much to my parents' dismay. What makes us all American? Is it ethnicity? Look around you, that can't be true. We have an African American today at the highest office of our land here. Is it religion? No. We had a Mormon American running for the highest office. What makes us American are our freedoms, our Bill of Rights, our Constitution. And today, that very essence is being threatened by the very government that has sworn to uphold these principles. Have we learned nothing from Germany, Nazi Germany, where one thing led to another and then dissent was crushed? Anything against the government was considered treason. People were locked up without trials, without due process. We are a step away from a a police state. Just one step away. Look at New York. The search and seize program aimed at minorities. Yeah, I was waiting for a yeah. I didn't think that would come. Have we learned nothing from the NYPD surveillance program? Over a decade spying on Muslim Americans, and not one shred of evidence. What did that serve to accomplish but to alienate? And some people would say, well, the Founding Fathers never envisioned such a complex environment. Really? They didn't? What did Benjamin Franklin say? Warning, those who will give up freedom for temporary safety deserve neither. It's not like this wasn't thought of. Evil flourishes when good people do nothing, and that's all the good people here today. We need to continue this effort. Let me read something that I took from Nazi Germany, but I extrapolated to what one day could happen. Hopefully it will never happen. When they came for my Second Amendment rights, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a gun owner. When they came, I did. This is a hypothetical situation that will never come. When they came for my Third Amendment rights, I didn't mind troops in my house because I supported the war, and damn it, I was a patriot. When they took away people's Fifth Amendment rights, I didn't say anything because those people, they were kind of shady, and if I wasn't involved with anything, I'd be okay, and damn it, I was a patriot. When they came for my First Amendment, I didn't say anything. Well, because, again, I supported the war, and damn it, I was a patriot. When they came for my Fourth Amendment and took away my home without due process, I couldn't say anything because I lost my first. That's what happened in Nazi Germany. Are we going to let this happen here? No! I think it was Abraham Lincoln that once said, America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. And that is what's happening. So everybody with me, restore the fourth! Restore the fourth! Thank you again for coming and having me.
If you're considering buying a new laptop online, you might want to think twice, because U.S. intelligence agencies are reportedly planting bugs on them before they reach their destination. German news magazine Der Spiegel says there is a special NSA unit dedicated to this task. RT's Peter Oliver has more.
The latest revelations that have come out from Edward Snowden that have been reported in Der Spiegel seem to show that the NSA's spying, snooping capabilities are far beyond what we previously thought. Not only can they listen to our phone calls, read our emails, but that in fact anything you buy may already come fully equipped with NSA hardware. Now, never mind Santa's workshop, they talk about a secret workshop that would install chips into computers that may be sold in certain areas that the NSA deems to be of worth looking into. So that means that anybody that received a computer for Christmas, have a look inside it. There may well be something you didn't quite expect in there. Now, as well as that, it also the latest revelations that were reported in Der Spiegel also go into the fact that the underwater cables that connect us all around the world have also been hacked by the NSA, and that yes, we're all being spied on, and they know everything what we're looking at, and not only can they access what we are sending over the internet, but occasionally it may well be that the hardware that we send those messages with is already being tampered with.
Well, for more on this story, let's cross live to London and talk to Jim Killock from the Open Rights Group. Sir, the latest revelations from the NSA, do you really think this means we can't trust our own laptops?
I mean, sometimes it will mean that some people shouldn't trust their laptops, and I think what we need, but also governments have into their own security organizations, and what part of what the Der Spiegel articles described today is how the NSA are hacking Mexican government in order that they can find out more about. Mexicans are dealing with drug issues and so on. So I think that's really quite dangerous and problematic, because again, the NSA appears to be making its own decisions about how other democratic governments should be operating their policies and not trusting them to do their job.
We are the people, defend the Bill of Rights. We are the people, defend.
Hundreds gathered at Union Station this Saturday to protest the NSA's surveillance methods. Protesters marched from Union Station to the Capitol reflecting pool to get the attention of the government. Among the many speakers at the rally was 2012 Libertarian presidential candidate Gary Johnson.
NSA has made a mockery of our privacy values.
We're here to protest the fact that every internet transaction, every phone call that you or I make is being recorded. Ludicrous to think that this is making us any safer.
Who is looking at all of this personal information? How will it be used? How will it be abused?
As we engage in many of the activities that very most define our lives, they are watching us. They're collecting data about all of us.
The hope is that we maintain some semblance of democracy in this country and make it easier for people to continue to engage in activism like what we're doing today.
The greatest fear I have is that nothing will change.
I keep waiting for a spark that America wakes up and recognizes this and demands that it end.
When I say whistle, you say blow. Whistle, whistle.
Several hundred people from liberal to conservative found common ground to rally against mass surveillance over the weekend. They were supporting Edward Snowden and other leakers and whistleblowers.
A lot of people are coming together over this, not because of any sort of political party stance, but more so because our basic rights are being violated.
Millennials are using these internet technologies, they're using their phones and things like that at a great higher rate than other generations that we're seeing. So I think that the idea that the NSA or this type of issue really resonates with the youth is because it affects the youth the most.
But all Americans are targets, according to the protesters.
Let's hear a shout out for Edward Snowden.
The founding fathers were revolutionaries, and certainly they would not, I think, want unwarranted searches and seizures, which is what's going on. They would not want to see the attack on journalism and the free press that's happening. But what they would like to see is a lot of people out here exercising their constitutional rights to speak out, to be heard, and to oppose what's happening right now in terms of spying and surveillance.
I felt the most appropriate way to celebrate the 4th of July, the founding of our nation, would be to actually take what our founding fathers, fought for, and take it seriously, and actually, follow these documents that they wrote. And because right now our government isn't doing that; they're breaking almost every right in our Bill of Rights. And I don't do something about it, then who will?
American people weren't able to have a conversation about the things that our government is doing in terms of surveillance on our emails, our telephone calls, and everything else until these leaks came out. So I think it's really important that as Americans we come here today and we come together and tell our government that we don't appreciate this.